everyone. I'm Evelyn O'Hara. I am the chair of this year's Veterans Day Committee. We are also pleased to have you here with us this morning to share your stories and experiences with all of us. Even before the United States was a country, there were militias made up of ordinary people.
Good morning. In the main office, we have items for Dan Picone, Nil Moya, and Addison Miltig. Thank you.
Okay. In continuation of that tradition, ordinary people continued to volunteer to be in the military, making sacrifices to protect American citizens, making sacrifices to protect our country. On June 1st, 1954, Congress declared November 11th as a national holiday so that we would all have the opportunity to remember, appreciate, and thank the millions of veterans among us that have done their service and made the ultimate sacrifice. So veterans, welcome to the Goffstown High School's Veterans Day Breakfast. We thank you for your service and dedication to our country and are grateful that you are here with us today.
Hello, I'm Brady McCann, and I am the co-chair of the Veterans Day Committee this year. I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand if you are able and remain standing during the national anthem, which will be performed by a select group of GHS chorus members.
Please be seated. Thank you, GHS chorus members. Each year we are grateful for the opportunity to thank our local veterans and active duty service members. Thank you for your service that you have given to our country and to us. Student council members will now recognize the veterans who are with us today. Veterans, please make yourself known to stand if able when your name is announced.
Hi everyone. Today I had the pleasure of jumping in mid-conversation with Mr. William or Bill Skoglund. He's a very nice man. He's right over there. So Mr. Skoglund was in the military from 1968 to 1972. He took a break for 2 years and then joined the reserve. He was in construction in the Navy and did lots of civic action. And a lot of what he did during his civic action was material testing. And he actually said that his biggest project that they had was improving about like 20 miles of road from their base. And he showed us one of his cruise books, which was actually really interesting to look at. We couldn't find his picture, but he says it's in there somewhere, so maybe. And then he told us that he volunteered for a maintenance camp in Dave, Maryland. He got denied, and then he transferred to Vietnam. And he told us that his favorite time in being in the military between those years was being in the reserve. And he said that during his time in the military, he actually got married. He's been married to his wife, Patricia, for 54 years now. And he's currently retired. He has 2 sons, 2 children that also graduated from Goffstown High School, just like Bill. And now he has 5 grandchildren, one of which just joined the Navy, right? The Marines. Yeah, so it was very nice to talk to Mr. Skoglund today. That's all I have. Thank you.
I had the pleasure of speaking to Mr. Albanes today. Mr. Albanes served our country with honor in the United States Air Force from September 1962 to August 1966. After basic training in technical school in Texas, he was stationed at Loring Air Force Base, Limestone, Maine, for 34 months. As an intelligence operational specialist with the 42nd Bomb Wing of the Strategic Air Command. He's a proud veteran of the Vietnam War, serving at headquarters, 7th Air Force, 16th Tactical Squadron, Tan Son Nhut Air Base, Saigon, Vietnam, from 1965 to 1966. He was awarded with the Small Arms Expert Marksmanship Medal, National Defense Service Medal, Vietnam Service Medal, and the Air Force Commendation Medal for meritorious service. When he joined the Air Force, he was asked to be stationed in the Northeast so that he could be somewhat close to home. They sent him to Loring Air Force Base, Limestone, Maine. It's located at the northernmost part of Maine, on the Canadian border. He doesn't think it's possible to get any further than Limestone, Maine. He volunteered to serve in Vietnam and was stationed at Tan Son Nhut Air Base, Vietnam, the first time it was attacked and mortared by the Viet Cong in February 1966. He lost 23 service members during this track. He did get to visit Hong Kong, China on leave while he was in Vietnam. He also saw the famous Bob Hope show while at the air base. He's been a Goffstown resident since 1977 and has been serving in multiple things since being a veteran. He was involved in Cub Scout Pack 99 and Boy Scout Troop 99. He served as a member of the Goffstown Master Plan Update Committee in 1987 and the Parks and Recreation Master Plan Committee in 2009. I could go on for a long time, but I'll stop there. So thank you, Mr. Albanes.
Today I spoke with Rachel Bichette, this beautiful woman in the front. Her role in the military, she was a warrant officer in a Navy boot camp. And she served from 1969 to 1972 in San Diego. Her job was she basically sent people away, people who weren't qualified. She said once a man didn't even know his own last name. Now she worked at a bus company right after in Manchester for 10 years, and until she had her second child, and she became a paraprofessional. She wanted to include that she loved it. She loved working in the military, and she joined because she had a brother in Vietnam and she wanted to do her part.
I had the pleasure of meeting with Greg Gualtieri. Greg Gualtieri served valiantly in the U.S. Army in the 6th Infantry in Berlin, Germany from 1962 to 1965. His mission was to prevent a Soviet takeover of West Berlin. Berlin was isolated like an island from West Germany by 110 miles of the Autobahn highway. On many occasions, supply routes were blocked by the Russian military, but he brought food and emergency supplies to keep residents alive. He ensured the Tempelhof Air Force Base was safe and stayed functioning, and he helped make sure that the spread of communism wouldn't affect America in West Germany, sorry. One memorable highlight of his was when President John Kennedy visited Berlin to assure Berliners that we would never let the Soviet military take West Berlin, no matter what. During that speech, he was a security guard at the presidential podium when President Kennedy historically made this speech and said, "I am a Berliner." He lives in New Boston, and him and his wife own a business making dog hunting coats and dog beds. He's also involved in raising and training service puppies for the Foliage Retriever service dog in Meredith. Their dogs have gone on to save many people, whether it's through Norman, who alerted his owner's neighbors when his owner was having a seizure, saving his owner's life, or Fred, who offers comfort and therapy to his owner who suffers from PTSD. The Gualtieri service saves lives even today, showing a veteran's impact never fades. One quote he told me was that America's freedom is not free, but we fought, and that's why everyone is here. Throughout the conversation, you could tell that him and his wife are one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. They taught me about many things, including what the honor flag is, the very interesting history of Babson College and its connection with New Boston, which I had no idea. He taught me about the fall and rise of the Berlin Wall and the difference between a therapy dog and a service dog. So, thank you, Greg Gualtieri.
Mr. and Mrs. Current service dog of her training is named Jonah. He's a 7-month-old English lab, and he's too young to be a veteran, but by the time he'll reach 18 months, we're paired with an American Euro that is suffering from PTSD.
Before I get started, I want to say that it was an absolute pleasure talking with Master Sergeant Woolley. He likes to be called Kyle, but that just seems way too not professional. But he's just always smiling and so fun to talk to, and he wanted to know all about our lives as much as we wanted to know about his. So, all right. Kyle was originally serving in the Air Force, and he deployed to Qatar and helped with Iraq and Afghanistan wars. He served 19 years, and after 20 years, he's going to retire and get a real job. Like, he wants to do something related to computers and kind of military-ish. He joined the military so that he could travel and see the world. He's been to South Korea, Italy, Germany, China, Africa, and many more. He didn't just go for military, but he also went on tours and explored the world. Now he works at the New Boston Space Force Station, where he's a superintendent, and he works on satellite tracking and control. He basically makes sure everything up in space runs smoothly. The Space Force is the smallest military branch so far, which broke apart from the Air Force in 2019, and Master Sergeant Julie switched over to the Space Force because he said he likes change. He loves doing stuff in the community and reaching out to new people. I've loved talking with him, and I'm very impressed with all of his accomplishments.
I have the pleasure of talking to Mr. Guyette. Mr. Guyette served in the Coast Guard from 1959 to 1982, where he had split service, and he spent his time as a lighthouse keeper, or an aide to navigation. where sometimes his biggest enemy could be boredom. He worked hard to get into the Coast Guard, and he set out right after he graduated high school. He graduated high school on Friday and was in boot camp by Monday. He was first placed on a Coast Guard ship that was headed to Cuba because we thought we were going to have a war with Cuba. He is a second-class officer, and one of the stories that he shared with me that I thought was really funny was that the ships that the Coast Guard had to protect the president, who was President Bush at the time, could only go about 40 miles per hour. But President Bush's boat could go 70 to 80 miles per hour. So most of the time, the Coast Guard was just waiting for President Bush to come back. Now, he's an avid fisherman and likes to do woodworking, and he likes to watch football games with his 5 children, 14 grandchildren, and 14 great-grandchildren. And he's hoping to maybe have some great-great-grandchildren. He also sings in his church's choir, and he is an active member of our community, and he lives in New Boston. It was a pleasure talking to Mr. Guyette today.
Today, I had the pleasure of talking to Mr. John Chapman. Mr. Chapman is originally from Rhode Island, and when he was 18, he went straight to the Navy from high school. After 3 years, he transferred to the American Red Cross, and under the Red Cross, he was treated as a captain and served for 35 years in both Vietnam and Delaware. Then, he worked as the New Hampshire Disasters Manager, ran the New Hampshire Blood Bank, and was the chapter executive of Massachusetts. One of the stories that I found the most touching is as follows. While serving as chapter executive of Mass, he received a message from Switzerland that revealed the location of a lost brother of a man in his chapter. He was then able to tell the man that his brother had been found, demonstrating just how rewarding the job was. He is now writing a book to inform the public about what the Red Cross is and what they do. He considers the Red Cross the most rewarding job of his life. Thank you, Mr. Chapman, for all that you do, and thank you for your service.
Today, I have the pleasure of talking to Mr. Paul Sitek. Chief Petty Officer Paul Sitek served in the U.S. Coast Guard from 1983 to 2013. Mr. Sitek's spark began here in GHS's tech courses. His love for technology led him to work as an electronics technician and was responsible for communications and navigation equipment in Boston. During his service, he worked on a 210-foot ship and worked to rescue Haitian migrants from unsafe ships, then returning them to their country. Now he is married to Christy, who we also met here at GHS, and they have 3 kids. Mr. Sitek continues to work in electronics today, using his skills to help his community. Thank you for your service.
Today, I had the honor of speaking to Mr. Matthew Small. Mr. Small served in the military from September 1999 to September 2021. He served as a military police officer from 1999 to 2005 and an explosive ordnance disposal technician from 2005 to 2021. He achieved the rank of Master Gunnery Sergeant and received numerous military decorations, including 2 Bronze Stars with V for Valor, 3 Navy and MC commendations with V for Valor, and 2 Combat Action Ribbons, and 7 Sea Service Deployment Ribbons. Mr. Small spent time in more than 15 countries during his 22-year career. He had 4 combat deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan, with a 5th deployment supporting maritime interdiction operations in the Middle East. He also fought in the Battle of Fallujah. Now Mr. Small is a stay-at-home dad. He spends his time coaching youth sports, woodworking, and hanging out with his dogs and cats. His message to us is, please don't forget there are young men and women not much older than you, standing at posts all over the world while we enjoy our way of life here at home. Thank you.
Good morning. Today I had the pleasure of talking to Mr. Brad Parkhurst. Mr. Brad Parkhurst served 4 years on active duty in the Army and 32 years with the Army Reserve and Army National Guard. He retired as a first sergeant. His deployments included Korea, 6 times to Iceland, 3 times to Canada, Alaska, and several joint NATO exercises. He has received 2 Meritorious Service Medals, 2 Army Commendation Medals, 2 Army Achievement Medals, National Defense Medal, and many overseas deployment medals, and other awards and decorations, including the Army Drill Sergeant Badge and the Army Recruiting Badge. Mr. Parkhurst is now retired, but is heavily involved with the Goffstown community and youth activities. He works security for UNH football and other sports as an off-ice official for UNH and St. Anselm hockey. He serves on the Goffstown Parks and Recreation Commission and the Goffstown CIP community, part of the GHS softball broadcast team as of Goffstown election poll worker and was honored to be selected as the Goffstown Volunteer of the Year Award in 2017 and the Parks and Recreation 2020 Volunteer Award. Thank you, Mr. Parkhurst, for your service.
Today I had the pleasure of speaking with Sergeant Sturm. Sergeant Sturm is a member of the Space Force and works on satellites in New Boston. He started in 2015 and still works there. He says his biggest accomplishment is helping people getting things done. Other accomplishments of him are working on the weather balloon that got stuck in the sky for a week, which ended up in the woods in Canada. Sergeant Sturm has worked in Korea, New Hampshire, Maryland, Georgia, as well as Germany during COVID. Sergeant Sturm is one out of the 5 people who work in the Space Force in the state of New Hampshire. Before he joined the military, he worked in Los Angeles, California as an EMT. We appreciated speaking with you.
Hello. First, I just wanted to mention how much of an honor it was to speak to this lovely man back here, Alan Halpern. We're going to refer to him as Al for today because it's what he prefers. So basically, he graduated from Goffstown High School, and then he went to UMass Amherst. And then right after he graduated from there, he went on to the National Army Guard, and he served there from 1971 to 1977. And he did his basic training at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
During his service, Al had many great accomplishments. He trained to prevent riots in 1974 due to a desegregation act, a law passed in South Boston. He helped mitigate flooding along the Massachusetts coast, stacking up sandbags that were taller than him. He also guarded the 1976 bicentennial parade with the president. During his service, he went to the 1971 Missouri-Nebraska football game. Also during his service, something to note, he became friends through training with a player on the Cleveland Browns. He taught for 45 years at Timberlane and Londonderry and coached track. He's now a PA announcer for Goffstown football and basketball, so you might recognize his voice. He lives in Goffstown with his wife, Kristen, and kids, Gabby and Toby. He's a member of 3 Hall of Fames and coached 25 state championships. He was recently down at UMass with his college buddies. I just wanted to reiterate, it was an honor to talk with you today, and thank you so much for your service.
I just wanted to say that we had a great time talking to Ms. Belanger. She served in the U.S. National, Air Force and NH National Guard. Her role in the military was an aerospace ground equipment technician. So she repaired various flight line equipment to support their flight and tanker aircraft. Some of her achievements were being in the NJROTC in high school and becoming a student red rope and a flight commander at the tech school. Some of her awards are the Basic Training Ribbon, Marksman Ribbon, Short Tour Ribbon, or the Longtown Ribbon, and an Outstanding Unit Award Ribbon while at Peace AFB in Portsmouth, NH.
One interesting fact about her is she served in Turkey from 1981 to 1983. Now she's a special education paraprofessional at GHS for 21 years. She has 2 kids, 1 boy and 1 girl. Her son is in the National Guard, and both of her kids graduated from GHS. She has dedicated her life to serving people. Thank you for your service.
Good morning, folks. Today I got the pleasure to speak with Major McLemore. She is currently serving in the Space Force and has been for 5 years, but before that she was serving in the Air Force 8 years. She currently serves as the Director of Operations, overseeing the maintenance and infrastructure for satellites on the eastern half of the states. But before getting the position, there was only about 60 people that are like Directors of Operations, but there's over 7,000 people that are chosen from. So it's a lot of respect and work to get such a position, at least from my point of view. In Maryland, she helped establish a military footprint for establishing buildings and communications. So National Guards have their own little thing over there. And also worked in a laser clearinghouse in California for allied partner integration space system testing of vulnerabilities, help with space things, exactly. And next week, She'll be going to Florida Eastern Vehicle Checkout Facility to see its operations and how it's running. But it's been a pleasure to speak with her, and it's been great.
I had the pleasure of speaking today with Mr. Jason Champagne. And he was a paratrooper in the Army, and he served from 1999 to 2007. He said he jumped into 13 different countries, and he served in Iraq, and then he went to Kosovo, and then Afghanistan. He served in the units 173rd Airborne Division and 187th Infantry Brigade. He had 4 combat tours and he was sergeant in 3 years. Currently, he's a postmaster for post service in Dublin, New Hampshire. And in the military, he learned a lot about respect, time management, working with others, and a ton of life skills that you get exposed to right away. He has goats and ducks, and he likes playing Call of Duty. And he has 3 sons and 2 daughters, and his 2 daughters came today. It was a pleasure speaking to him, and thank you.
Today I had the absolute pleasure of speaking with Mr. Robert Clinton. Mr. Robert Clinton served in the New Hampshire National Guard from 1965 to 1968. Then he joined the U.S. Army from 1968 to 1970. In the Army, he served in Vietnam in food distribution, then served in Fort Devens, Massachusetts in supply. He then went back to the New Hampshire National Guard in 1970 to 2002 and served as a food warrant officer. He also went back to college and went on to be a high school history teacher in Merrimack, New Hampshire. He spoke of his 30 years of teaching very fondly and says that if he was born for anything, he was born for teaching. He says the military helped him become a more mature, more of a team player, and more focused on the completion of group tasks. Thank you for your service, and thank you for the time you spent speaking with us today.
Veterans, thank you for sharing your stories with us. We would now like to welcome Eva Carpio, who will be reading the poem Thought for Today.
Dear veterans, those of us who have not served will never fully understand the sacrifices you made, both in times of peace and of war. We will never fully understand what you were required to do or how you were able to do it. We will never fully understand the depth of your scars. But we can offer you this. We see you, we recognize your sacrifice, and we send you love and blessings and gratitude. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Eva. Let's give a round of applause for the veterans who have joined us here today. Veterans who could not join us, as well as the men and women who are currently serving our country.
Along with the thank you cards that you have received, we also have made a donation on your behalf to the Liberty House as a token of our appreciation. On behalf of Goffstown High School, thank you all for your service to our country and the sacrifices that you have made. You are all heroes, you all fought for our freedom and should be celebrated. We appreciate you sharing your stories and allowing us to honor you today, as you should be honored every day.